And talking of hands, one last thing, on a greasy night, weren't Harry McKay's good?
They were. And between he and Casbolt, I mean, you know, they got two really good key forwards there. In fact, who'd have thought they could go without Charlie Curnow for this whole season and really not necessarily be affected that much? I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they actually organise that forward setup when he does return, because boy, they've got an embarrassment of key forward riches there. Go
on. Now had look for much of last year's trade period. It looked as though, by dint of Danaher going to Sydney, that they were going to land Tom Papley. Be a strong forward line. You know, not a great night on this great celebration of Indigenous football to mention that he would be a much better choice than Eddie Betts. But Eddie's had a great career. Let's not forget that. But put Papley in that forward line, even without Curnow, and I'd hoist them further up the ladder. Like, I'm talking 2 or 3 spots up the ladder.
Well, the guy they've got who's done a pretty reasonable job without a Papley, I reckon, is Gibbons. You know, he's become a really valuable player for them, and even more so since I stopped calling him Sam Gibbons. He's come a long way. Let's start ripping through a few questions, because we're getting quite a few now. AJS says, Martin's sublime tonight to think we got him for free. Again, yeah, he's been a great addition, hasn't he? He seems to have discovered a consistency that he always lacked at Gold Coast, hasn't he? He's not the first player to do that, but he was always rated very highly as a talent. I think we're seeing a lot more why now, aren't we?
Completely different player, Rowan. At Gold Coast, he was a pop gun forward. I just hope they're not using Rankin in a similar way to his detriment. Because Jack Martin has shown very quickly that he is a reliable, possession-winning transition player, whether it's through the midfield, even coming off a half-back flank at the bounce. Let's just say that Rankin, and you pointed it out tonight by not using his wrong foot, in the last 2 or 3 weeks, he's showing some sort of Larry bad habits that are the domain of those pop gun, you know, those feature forward pockets. Now, I'm sure Rankin will end up on the ball and be a much better player, but we see with Jack Martin exactly what that translates into and how quickly Carlton have better used him.
Yeah, I mean, that Rankin shot on goal, and, you know, people correctly pointed out he's only played half a dozen odd games, but I mean, that's the sort of stuff, it's a bit of a, I'm a bit Jason Dunstall-ish about not so much the dribble kick, but he had so much room to get onto his left foot. And someone pointed out they've seen him kick goals on his non-preferred foot. I mean, why wouldn't you have done it then? Actually, I'm going to pinch a trick from you. I want to talk about a curious non-decision, which was pretty irrelevant to the overall result, but I'll hang on to that for a sec as we rip through a few more. Mouth for Hire says, thought Weitering gave King a bath. He did indeed. In fact, I saw King sort of jog past a contest at one stage, and I thought, I haven't even seen him. In fact, I'm going to look up how many touches he had. Go on, Finey, what were you going to say?
Jack Martin, you know that Isaac Rankin in his left foot, that incredible goal he kicked right at the end of the St Kilda game, that almost the game, that was on his left.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not like he couldn't have gone on his non-preferred. 5 disposals for Ben King, by the way. So 2 kicks, 3 handballs. Absolutely. Yeah, I thought, look, Weitering smashed him. He's having a great season, Weitering. Rob Rice says, thoughts on Tom de Koning. It's interesting how his father was Terry de Koning, but he's Tom de Koning. Apparently, that's what the parents want. Can he stay in Carlton's best 22? And it comes back to that interesting, you know, 1 ruckman or 2 question, doesn't it? But, he's mobile. I mean, he moves really well. Again, you know, if Matthew Cruiser does get back at some stage, be it this year or next year, interesting selection decisions there with de Koning, Cruiser and Pittonet, who has had a fair sort of season for him as well. So I mean, you know, like in key areas, they are now, I wouldn't say embarrassed by riches, but boy, they've got some real flexibility in terms of the 22s they go with against different opponents.
Tome to Koning. Yeah, I'm just not used to calling him de Koning after Terry. I think he pictures himself ahead of Pitney, certainly from next year. What a lovely mobile ruckman he is.
He's good.
And a nice mover up forward as well. Just probably a couple of times got excited with the ball in his hands and didn't make the next best decision. That will come. I would have thought he's sort of your modern ruckman. Maybe got a bit of the future Tim Englishes about him, not just the blonde hair, but the slighter body and more mobile than your average, bigger ruckman. I think Jared Witts had his really had his colours lowered tonight by that duo, which is rare.
Yes, it is.